Greetings, everyone. I'm Luke Bryan Smith, and welcome to Enlightened, Empowered, Evolved. Hope everybody's doing well. Wait, I know everybody's doing well. I have faith everybody's doing well, and everything is unfolding perfectly. I'm excited yet again. I think you know I was going to say that because I'm speaking with another person, another extraordinary person from around the world, Katherine Girardi. And before I even get into that, today is a very special show. As you all know, if you've been following me, watching my show, and for those of you that don't know, I usually come up with a title for my show. I mean, it's Enlightened, Empowered, Evolved. That's the name of the show. But each segment has its own individual title. And I usually come up with that title after I rewatch. I'm doing the edits and I rewatch the show and then I come up with a title that speaks out to me. But this is a unique show because we've already come up with a title for this show. Well, Katherine has. And the title of this show is Harry Potter Hacks and Golden Buzzer Energy Wells You Can Tap Into Today. Yes. And you may not understand, or maybe you do, but nonetheless, this is going to be a very extraordinary show, and I can't wait to get started. Let me tell you a little bit about Katherine so we can get her in here and get her talking. So Katherine is an international transformational coach, clarity mastery expert, and emotional alchemist. Katherine has been called the secret ace up the sleeve and Jedi of clarity for numerous coaches, therapists, and professionals due to her meaningful systems that work, which put an end to further stoicism. She works with extremely powerful people who do not have time to be slowed down. Her work transforms the blocks to receiving success, prosperity, love, and new opportunities that lead to momentum, increase, sustained energy for high performance, and powerhouse resiliency. She cultivates the deep inner knowing in others that everything is an advantage now. She has been cherished at countless events, seminars, and conventions on stage and behind the scenes, creating flow and harmony so that others may shine when it matters most. She is a grounding force of peace in the midst of chaos and is also known for being the one conversation transformation expert who has powerful tools for restoring momentum, converting fear into action, and problem solving with goddess oracle insight and intuition. Fully engaged. Katherine is the co-founder of twininferno.org and the first virtual 24/7 interactive emotional metabolism and alchemy access with a global mission of presence and self-worth. Twin Inferno is also built to be transformational performance art with a video library of teaching stories and resources to explore presence and conscious perception. Katherine does ongoing private session work, group masterminds, workshops, and retreats. She draws upon over 20 years of leadership, teaching, and volunteer work for nonprofit organizations and success in the professional arena, in addition to being a martial artist, Reiki master, spiritual advisor, visionary, and powerful intuitive guide. Wow, amazing. How are you doing today, Katherine?
I'm doing so well. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, I'm so grateful for having you here. I believe that time is one of our most precious assets. And for you to choose to spend some of your time here with me, I greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Oh, my honor as well. I know that I felt something special about you the second you contacted me. And when I looked at all your titles, I was so intrigued and I immediately dove in and found new people I'm really interested in exploring. So thank you for starting this where you have such a resource to be available for people. Because this is what I love the most, is being able to send people in certain directions to check things out and to figure things out. So thank you for being part of that effort and doing so much.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you again for being so receptive and open, and extending love and being here today. So let's just get right into it. First off, let's talk a little bit about the title a bit. I mean, let's just be real with it. We were talking about the algorithms that will generate uh, you know, people to come look at this. So is that how you came up with that title?
No, this is actually, I'm actually sharing something that I really love to teach people when it comes to techniques that they can use today. I genuinely thought, well, what is it that we could offer to people that they could run with today, that they could potentially make a difference with today for themselves? And so when there's so much need, there's so many people who are trying to figure out how to handle the next phone call that comes or some other, view of something that might send them into a spin. It's like, I really want to offer that they can feel a little more choice. And that's really what I do. I present people with more options than they thought they had, because in the long run, when something confronts us, whether it's a variety of change or it's getting news that's hard or having to have a conversation that you're afraid of the outcome, we have to be able to draw from as many different ways to prepare ourselves. In the same way as which, if we get to the end of our day and we want to do something special, help ourselves relax, we also want to do the same to prepare to handle the unexpected. And so one of my favorite things to do is to really meet people where they're at and customize what's going to work for them. What's going to be the thing that is universal, that makes a difference. And so I teach those tools. And that's why I wanted to share a couple, because one of the things that I do suggest to people is I definitely, since I'm working from a space of wanting to give people a chance to change their state, if they're feeling that constriction, the intensity, and we want to create flow, I'll say something like, let's get a number of different movies that you like that are about triumph. And let's have you watch something consciously, because to me, emotional alchemy is really a lot like nutrition. And in the same way as in which we have grown so much, where we used to think we could just eat anything, and then we wondered why we were getting sick or we were feeling sluggish or slow. And then we started learning more about how to eat differently for energy or eat differently for a longer endurance. And so what's amazing is that I discovered that emotions, if we eat food so that we can, chew it and digest it and get the vitality from it, the energy from it, we also as spirits come in and have an experience that generates emotions that then we digest into wisdom. However, in the same way that we can be eating food and go, oh, that didn't sit with me, or, oh, I didn't really digest that, or, oh, I think I'm allergic to this one. Well, emotions are really the same way. There's some that we have the training and the understanding, we're built to metabolize them swiftly, or we live a lifestyle that lets us metabolize them more swiftly. On the other hand, in the same way as you can have one dinner that goes sideways and you're all bound and stuck and you got a stomach ache, emotions do the same thing. So in a lot of ways, we want to support digestion of certain things with different things we can be engaged with, or actual exercise. A lot of times when I'm offering to people options, if it's not a film to help them, get heart-centered and be excited and feel like I can make it, or to just hear the music of a great soundtrack can be, emotive in a way that helps kind of move from feeling stuck and down into feeling more hopeful. And so I get excited about that. In the same way that my martial art training didn't come from a space of like, let's go to the ring and get a trophy. Mine was actually the school where we only, worked and trained in nature or indoors, but it was from a space of a real partnership with nature to be a sounding board for our humility, a way to find out where our edge was. And so by doing it that way, we really learned how to draw energy from nature or to release energy. So if you've got a little garden, or even if you have plants you take care of, just the act of getting your fingers in the soil can really make a difference for your whole body in ways that we don't often think about. So a lot of times I'm asking people, what's your relationship to nature? How do you get out in it? Not from a fitness point of view, but from an emotional alchemy side of how can you have access to shift your momentum, or shift your bravery, or, give you that access to clarity by sitting down and really dropping in, because being with trees and being with other things can actually help you move things through. So
yes,
it's really fun.
No, I agree. Definitely. There's a shift when an energy that I receive, an uplifting when I go out in nature, or when, like you said, when I touch the soil with my hands or my feet, or ground myself directly to Mother Earth, or climbing or touching a tree. There's
Definitely.
definitely, and I didn't know a long time ago, but I do know this, that even when I was a kid and I would do things like that, I felt I was always happy. So there was something to it. And now I know.
What's even more kind of funny to think about is when you want to grow a garden, what do? You get fertilizer. What's that fertilizer? Right. It's something like manure, right? So here's this poo that you're going to go put in a space you want to grow food in, right? And you think, wait, it's counterintuitive. That can't be it. However,
I'm going to eat this.
Right. Yes. However, when you're releasing emotions, which is literally something you're done with, it's just like, it's the byproduct of that process. When you bring it to nature, nature doesn't see it as, oh my God, you just put poo on me. You just, released your anger or your sorrow or your sadness or your rage. Nature's actually go, hey, that's raw energy. Thanks. I know what to do with that. And that energy being recycled and replenished, we have this beautiful network of, mycelium and fungus that works underground to be the wood wide web. And all of that is this composting process where, to nature, that cycle is totally not just natural, but it is the potency that actually makes life itself. So when we know that we have expansion and contraction, I like to think of this as both a treasure hunt, really, of what's a cool way to get this done, what works, what doesn't work. And so I'd say there's an aspect of when you study martial arts, we were trained to be the style of no style, in a very similar way, Bruce Lee would say, be like water. And so our goal was to get to be so in presence that we're not thinking, we're able to mirror and flow. And because we've been introduced to things, we can just adapt on the fly. We can improvise. We can, be able to make that shift. So I loved that, to be able to learn that, someone would stand in front of you and they'd throw a strike and you'd figure out how to block and redirect the energy. And one of the things that we learned from an early time was to go into the eye of the storm, to lean into the center, because once you do that, then you can take gravity and, you can be in charge of that energy and guide it, and preferably
use that energy.
Right. Where you're not just, breaking somebody, but you're actually hopefully containing them, which takes a little more training to do. But the idea is you containing them so that they're not hurting you and they're not hurting anyone else either. Wow. And that takes some effort. And there's some work to be in that level of humility as well.
Wow. That's amazing that you made reference to Bruce Lee too, because that's a childhood icon and hero of mine.
Me too.
I love Bruce Lee.
Of it. And then to take that idea of loving how when you really work techniques, they grow into you. And in order for you to really embody them and make room for them, you've got to be able to transmute your own ego and know how to let things go, let them be, set outside. My teacher had it set up that we couldn't park any closer than about a half mile away. And we had to walk the rest of the way before we got there. And that was so we could empty our cup. And after emptying our cup, we had to do, 1,000 strikes on a makawara and then, rake the sand so it was clean, and walk our way out and then put our shoes outside and bow in. And that whole process really taught you to respect how it all works. But it also was kind of a way to smooth yourself out. And I thought, wow, we need that so much. And we don't have the same access to creating sacred space like we used to. But the way we create sacred space is with our intentions, our choices, and that relationship here to what works and what doesn't work, right?
Yes.
Because this is what you're doing. You're here gathering the gold nuggets from people so you can share with others, which is genius. Because
I consider myself more of a student, but a teacher as well. But in any given conversation, I feel like I'm both.
You have to be. We're in duality, and the way we spend it is we go into the space of opportunity to say, well, it's not good or bad. It's an opportunity to experience, or it's an opportunity to be curious. What else can we do? So in my curiosity, in my, just loving, theater and loving what people can do with their body, what they can, do for story writing. You hear a great story and your heart just, it just feels so good. And if you hear a great story, that's what happened. We see the stories of, football players, going into the locker room between the halftime, and they're hearing the words and they come back out and then they rock it. Well, what did they hear? What was said to them that worked? And so I got fascinated by that, right?
Right.
So when it comes to sharing my first Harry Potter hack with everyone, this is it. Anybody who loves Harry Potter knows that he got to learn the coolest spells. And one of the most fun spells early on was something called How to Deal with a Boggart. Do you remember that? The Boggart? The Boggart was a creature who would take the form of whatever you feared most.
Oh, yes.
Mouth was that thing that we were most afraid of. So all the students lined up and he unleashed it. And first comes out, Professor Snape and the
spider and all that. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
He was terrified. And the teacher says, the professor says, now picture your mother, your grandmother, your godmother in her outfit and put it on him and make it funny. And they would say ridiculous to make it funny. And then everybody would laugh. Well, that actually works. That actually is a technique I've taught to people to play with, not from a space of magic, but just your own imagination. So, for example, I would say to people, let's say they had someone at work who was driving them nutty and they just were so just frozen in outrage at how this person makes them crazy. And I would say, okay, the next time you see that person, you're feeling scared about what's going to happen. I want you to picture that they have the most enormous, like rainbow clown hat on. And then on top of that is a puppy that's bending its bottom over and it's pooping on their head.
Yeah.
That's an example.
Wow.
But that idea of if you can be humorous yourself, if you can use comedy and you can break the spell, whether it's picturing something
yourself
gigantic.
I was going to say, take yourself out of that negative emotion.
Well, it's more that by redirecting your mind to get on the creative side and your sort of puzzle solving brain, and then you're being curious. And then when you add color or, you have big hoop earrings or a clown nose or something that, if you're not afraid of clowns, whatever it works for you, maybe it's giving them, pigtails or funny bows on their head or rabbit ears and doing something that just you find amusing. If that can just snap you out of it, you kind of can't focus on two things at the same time as well. And so it breaks the tension. And the first place that I saw this work was when I was actually terrified of getting my blood drawn for a blood test for anything. Didn't matter. If I was required of a needle of any kind, I was ready to pass out. And I was like, okay, I have to figure this out because I have to get something done. And so I figured out, well, if I pick something up and I read it and I look away, I knew and learned that I couldn't actually read something out loud and still pay attention to what was happening over here. So I made it so I broke the spell of my focus on the thing that scared me. So here comes Harry Potter, years and years later, and they're talking about using comedy to do that. And I thought, oh, wouldn't that be fun if it worked? And so when I've introduced it to people, whether it's a family member that's frustrating them, or it's a coworker, or it's someone else that just intimidates them, I'll say, hey, pretend that they look like Donkey from Shrek, and they just, and there's this most adorable TikTok video of a donkey that smiles to these women and they just cannot help but bust out laughing. And so I'll show that to someone. I'll say, okay, picture the donkey, smiling at you. And they smile on their inside. And when they do, all of a sudden they don't feel as oppressed. They don't feel as stuck, and they have a freedom in that moment.
Right.
And so that's the hack number one. I'm going to share some more.
That's amazing too, how you put that together and out of your own, just, I don't want to say like curiosity, but just you just followed
Practice
something.
Application.
Yes.
Yeah. You need it. Like,
yes.
I like to teach stuff where you actually can use it and it's important and it works. And it's that feeling of like, okay, how can I do this differently? How can I have more choices about how to handle this other than feeling, cornered and stuck and then frustrated with ourselves because we can intuitively feel there's another way. We just don't know what it is.
But like I said, that's amazing that you just from a movie, it motivated you to look further and say, wait a minute, there's something to this. Yes.
Yeah, I want to do that too. I'm like, I want to know.
And you did. You made it in reality.
Yeah.
Into reality.
And the first, I think maybe when, when we think about studying martial arts, somebody who doesn't know what they're doing, they make a joke about how if you've no idea what you're doing, you look like you swat like you're being attacked by bees,
right,
because your arms are everywhere and you're trying to do everything. But when you actually know what you're doing, it can be the simplicity of just drawing an energy and moving in a very different way with a lot less effort. So what I love is being able to show something to someone that makes it so they're not spending as much energy getting exhausted by not knowing what to do. There's so much available energy that we can put towards other things like recovering or being healthy. Right. And I mean, I know you have a passion about wanting to help people figure out how to vibrationally kick cancer. And right. I also, came from a family where cancer was something that was battled, in the family. And so we were always thinking, how can we have another approach? What can we do? Who's doing something that works? What do you do? And so in that same way, when the next hack from Harry Potter, I'm going to show you, this one took longer to solve, which was that one of my favorite ones is when Harry summons a Patronus. Do you remember when he did that? When he would, you'd wave the wand and you had to think of a really, really special love thought or something that really mattered. And then you could conjure this, your totem animal to come out, and it would make all the things that were about darkness and make all the happiness go out in the world go away. Right. And I thought, oh, wow, what I'd read before was that spontaneous healing can occur for people who knew how to tap into what they loved most about life. That was one of the things. I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Joan Borysenko, but she went and studied all these spontaneous healings that had happened. And she tracked that they had the ability to kind of get a handle on that energy that was particularly strong in the heart, that would make them radiate from here, and that would push illness.
Heart-centered, yes. Yes, right. I'm not familiar with what's her name again?
Dr. Joan Borysenko.
I'm not familiar with her, and I'm going to look her up. I'm going to write that down. But someone similar, someone that I do follow that has done similar research, and his name is Greg Braden.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he does that as well.
Yeah.
He's and her name is what?
Joan Borysenko. And I want to say it's Borysenko.
Okay. Yeah, I like to find.
Yeah, I want to say her book is called Mending the Mind, Minding the Body, or something, or it's one of those.
Okay.
She's a Harvard medical professor, or was. She's probably retired by now.
Okay. Yes, Joan Borysenko.
Yep, Borysenko.
Okay. Yes, I'm sure that I'll find when I go to Google her, the correct spelling will pop up.
Yep. So I got fascinated by what's it going to take to generate the caliber of feeling here that could push out other energy that was oppressive. Because I do techniques with people that do that. But if someone was on their own, or if I was on my own and I needed a boost, how could I find that? How could I generate? And it took a while to hunt it down. But I finally had an experience last year, which gave me the aha moment of, oh, there it is. I found it. And I was so excited. And it was actually while I was getting my nails done.
Intuition is happening all the time, and things are,
You never know when it's going to land. So here I am. Pedicure on my birthday. I'm all excited, and the TV has something on it, and they're playing a YouTube compilation of golden buzzer moments from America's Got Talent. And
America's what?
Got Talent.
Oh, Got Talent. Okay.
Right. So it's only the golden buzzer moments. So there's no risk. Nobody who's about to be up is maybe going to do poorly. It's a given that they're all going to win. And as an alchemist, I'm always looking for people who are going from fear, and then how to move them into presence, and then bring them into choice, so that they can then breathe and land and then expand into what they're going to do to handle the situation. Right. And so I'm watching this little girl get up on stage, and you can see that she's terrified from head to toe. Nobody knows who she is. Nobody's seen her before. And here's an agreement that she's made as a little soul, who's a big soul, to stand in front of potentially millions of people and 4 celebrity judges. And the agreement we go into sometimes where it can really terrify us. There she is, and her little heart's right there. And they say, go for it. And she opens her mouth and this incredible gift comes pouring out. Wow. And when you heard their story, and then you watch them not lose, not have an issue, and then be acknowledged to the point that they then press the button and the gold actually falls from the sky. There is you go with them. You go with the whole process and you feel your heart explode. And so I'm watching, and the first one, I was just, wow. But by the third one, I'm just weeping in my little chair, and I'm feeling it, and my heart's blowing open the way in which you see a really beautiful moment, except when they're lined up and they're stacked, this feeling was getting bigger and bigger. And I thought, oh, this is the one. This is it. This is the way to tap into that potency of big heart feeling, like a well, where you can just go get another drink anytime. There's plenty of recordings, but it doesn't have to be just that. It could also be your favorite sports moment if it's been captured, or a favorite moment of your own doing something where you feel that, and it's that big, but the difference
really opens up your heart.
Right. And
you can feel it emotionally.
Totally. And it makes you cry, which is another form of release that does all kinds of chemical things in your whole beingness, which is huge for clearing, releasing, metabolizing, and moving through stuff that can create illness. So what blew me away was that later in the day, after I had this aha moment, I was so excited. I went out to dinner and the food made me really ill. I was feeling so bad. And I really felt, oh my gosh, I'm coming down with something. We better leave right away. And we left. And my son said, Mom, what do you want? What can I do to help? And I said, I know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to test this golden buzzer theory. So I put on the 3 hours worth of it. And I just watched the whole thing. And I bawled and I cried with each person. And I made a stack of tissues. It was like this high. And as I did, I was feeling better and better and better. And I kicked it. I never got more sick. And it just left me. Thought, there it is. That's the kind of energy we need to harness when we need it, like this, no matter whether someone like me is available or not. Right. And to be able to know that we can do that with something like that, or we can do it with laughter.
Yes, laughter. That's a very powerful medicine. It's totally laughter. Yes.
Absolutely. So, by, the playful technique of working with the boggart, where you make it funny as one way. Right. And it really hit me that, comedians really are kind of the first publicly approved emotional alchemists through the centuries.
Yes. Right? I love watching stand-up comedy.
Totally. And they were, and they do. And really, if you think about it, the majority of their stuff is because they were really angry.
Right. Yes. They use their lives a lot as material. Yes. And they turn the sadness into a joke. Comedy.
Laughter.
So they are actually teaching you things too, to laugh at things. Not saying if you fall down and get hurt, it's funny, but they're teaching you to be able to find the humor through, the adversities in your life. You can look back, and see that you made it. And then, you can kind of laugh about it now.
Oh yeah. And they're really, we'll laugh when some truth is told.
Right.
So, when a comedian speaks something that people relate to, which is why they want to warm up the audience, get a sense of where they're at. They want to know like what town they're in, because based on what values are common in that area. Right. So they kind of poke around and they're trying to figure out, how can I speak truth you relate to that then I can make funny? Right. So
I see it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Really good comedians know how to do that. They feel, they start talking about certain real things and see how emotionally connected the audience is to that. So and they gauge and feel it. Yeah.
Totally. And I love the idea that in the same way that, Feng Shui, for example, encourages us to, keep our space clean. And then when we do, we can attract longevity and prosperity and love and health and all that. But I really feel like in the same way that our body is a home, the more that we can think of the grief or the anger that's been stored that we didn't know what to do with, the more that we can think of that as something that's an opportunity to convert into space to receive, that's how we can then tap into our manifesting power or our creation power, our ability to dream of that next thing we really want to create and go, oh, I want to dream this. But when your body is, is spending energy trying to keep stuff in or keep us together, that's energy we could move through and then use for something else, especially when we want to attract something cool. So I get excited to find the gold nuggets that work. And I get even more excited to create room for someone to receive the gold nuggets getting brought to their door.
Wow, that's amazing. And I feel that's what life is about, is through our own experiences, finding, ways to navigate. When you find ways to successfully navigate through things and to connect with love and joy through that process, and you have your own ways of doing that, and you share with other people, and that's exactly amazing. Yeah.
So one of the ways in which being a martial artist continues is that really when we have thoughts and we have certain things we're thinking about, it's kind of like driving around our home neighborhood. It's like driving on the block and seeing the things we're used to seeing, and similarly to the thoughts we have. And in the same way that neighborhoods, some are more dangerous than others, the same thing can occur within ourselves when we have shame, or we have something we feel bad about, or we have the shoulda, coulda, wouldas. And then we go and visit that space hoping we can make it different, when we have to really come into that relationship with being in acceptance. This is what happened. Now, how do we convert this into wisdom? And I love the idea, and I coined the phrase, failure is simply wisdom that's not fully cooked yet.
Right.
Because if it takes, really failure is this incredible opportunity to get so much information about what doesn't work.
Right.
And then pull from that new discernment and new muscles of, okay, well, let's try it again. Maybe it worked, maybe it doesn't, but to be a part of that practice process. And so as a martial artist, we were constantly training and then figuring out how to refine that process, how to make it so it had more flow or was easier. But the same thing happens in our own head. Depending on where we think or where we choose to think, we can go down rabbit holes that want to eat us alive. And so when we know there's a thought of something we're afraid of, the other way to track is by what you most resist. Where's that old saying, your potential's on the other side of what you most resist. Right. So originally I was tracking on like, okay, what's being resisted? And then let's unpack that. Let's get strong enough to handle it. But there's also the fact that sometimes we just get scared by something that shocked us, and we have to be able to kind of recover fast. And so sometimes, to snap yourself out of it, believe it or not, even just looking at a picture of your family or your dog, to see a puppy can already shift the chemistry, because your heart goes, oh, and right. In that little, oh, you can start that process of breaking.
Yes. Break that. Yeah. Break it up.
Right. And in martial arts, we learned to do something called a break fall, which is that we would slap the ground as we tucked our legs and kicked out, so that way the shock dispelled and it went out away from us. So we didn't feel the hard fall. And so when we can do this mentally by having something that brings us back to center, whether it's, we saw like in the movie Dune, when they say something, he says, fear is a mind killer, fear, I'll let it pass over me and through me, I shall not fear. He's saying something to bring him back. They've trained something that's their words. Yes. And so I also recommend people to find a short poem or right. a short something that they can say as their thing to get traction.
Yes, so an affirmation or something.
Right, or yes. something that's a meaningful poem. Or my son
saying.
Yeah, or something that's short that gives you, that you have to think about
that
it.
Has meaning for them.
Right, that's
right.
empowering, that's just enough that it can take your mind off of being and put it into, I am right here and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to figure out how to stay grounded. And that's, there's so many different kinds of techniques that we want to kind of figure out what's ours, what's our style. So what I love to do is meet people and kind of go, let's find out what your style is. Let's see what works for you. Where are the hot spots? What's your, in the same way that a nutritionist would meet with someone and say, what kind of food do you like? Right. What works for you? What feels like you're excited about that? And then from there, you can tailor it into a system that is literally the style of no style, but it's just right for us. Yes. It's just for you.
Unique for the individual. Yes.
Yeah, because we go through neighborhoods of life, whether it's a new job, whether it's hearing about a change that's happening, or, a new baby or a new love story. And so, the other thing I get excited to teach is to be aware that we have as much of a vulnerability hangover after something great happening as we do when something's hard. And it's also really been that, unfortunately, in these times, that when people have a huge success, it's actually really hard to find people who can receive it. People will act like, oh, that's great, good for you, oh, that's nice. But to actually know you're safe to tell a success story is not as easy as you would think.
Right. Yes.
Like,
no, I get it. I get exactly where you're going with this, because oftentimes, if I may elaborate a bit, oftentimes your success, I want to make sure I word this right. People take your success as a validation or of their failure sometimes. And then they're not really happy for your success, because they're like,
try, but you can feel it's inauthentic. You can feel that it brings.
Yeah, you can feel it. Yes, you can feel, if you really tune in, you can feel like, you know what? Certain people, just like I've learned, certain people I don't tell success things to, because it's almost like I'm just rubbing it in at this point, because I know it makes them feel uncomfortable. So I'm not going to go and tell them anymore.
But wouldn't it be amazing if we could learn a technique so that we could do it from a space of love and inspiration, so that we knew how to lovingly kind of check in and knew how to create that space. So it was possible.
Because obviously there's something there, that needs to be eradicated. And some type of something hooked with jealousy or envy or resentment or something that needs to be.
And it's not always intentional. And sometimes somebody could tell safely before, when you try it again, it doesn't work out. And you're like, whoa, I thought we were cool. I thought I could do this. So we want to be able to know our kind of vulnerability hangover style.
Right.
Also, as a way to know yourself. Some people need to go talk to another friend who does fully hear them. Other people, they go play a game, or they just, they veg on TV. But thanks to, the work of so many people who figured out, we know we probably don't want to numb if we can help it. We want to stay present, but that takes training, and you got to know the reward involved. So that's where, this kind of opportunity to say, hey, what's, in the same way that we have jet lag, right? And you go, all right, my jet lag recovery method is this much water, this much, protein, this much of a nap, and then I'm good to go, and it's the same process. So we want to be able to figure out, okay, I know that I need to vent to someone I trust. I need to be held or hugged. I want to go walk my dog, or I want to go for a run, and then I can clear myself. And all of that is emotional metabolism. Wow. It's burning it into another energy or moving through it then in a way that's present, where you know what's going on, and you can see it for what it is, and then make decisions about it. So really, I train leadership. Wow. How do you handle yourself? And then this led me to the next discovery I made. You ready?
I'm ready. Let's go. You're flowing. That's why you don't hear me. And I'll say this at the end of the show, but that's why I'm not asking too many questions right now. You're flowing. So I want you to flow, and you're telling we're here.
So one of the new discoveries that I made, that I've started playing with over the last, actually I've sort of beta tested in mastermind groups, and it just took off with ease. And I was so excited about it. And I'm going to be sharing it more in platforms and getting it out there, because I want us to feel like, in the same way that we know that nutrition that works to create energy isn't meant for few, it's meant for all of us to know what to do. Right. So this is an example of something that's very much in the everyday. You don't have to be some glamorous channel or some fabulous psychic to do this. We've actually, all of us who've watched TV and watched movies our lives, had training we didn't realize we had. And I love the idea of tapping into energy we've already got, and then figuring out how to use it for something really cool. So we know that people will pray, to Archangel Michael or someone else, and kind of want to, ask for that blessing. And that's beautiful. However, right now, there are certain things that we can get access to through our own consciousness and our own collective awareness. And the idea came a few different ways. The first one was that when I was studying martial arts, we used to do the tiger form. And we would, do this, a series of movements that were the tiger or the crane. And I've never been a tiger before, so how can I do that? Yet when I think about how a tiger is, I can snap into it and get tigery. And And in the same way, I thought, right now, one of the things that's needed is the ability to calm ourselves down the way that a horse whisperer can do it with a horse.
Right.
And so I studied and looked at the guy Buck Brannaman and his story and how he became a horse whisperer and how does he work. And what's beautiful is you see him have an open hand and the rope is over and he's leading a horse that was just recently, bucking and kicking and didn't want to cooperate. Yet he knows how to have a way about him that guides cooperation.
Right.
Right.
It's non-threatening to the horse. Yes.
The one that I realized that in some ways, I'm the one that's horse whispering in a way with my client where they're upset. They've been spun. Something's been very upsetting. And it's like, okay, let's figure out how to bring you into calm. Let's let you know you're safe. Let's let you know you got choices. And that's the same thing that he does. And I thought, oh, wow, like I got to keep downloading this essence of horse whisper. And then I had another aha where I thought, oh, the other thing we really need is we need to know how to surf these waves because they keep coming. Right. Wave of news, wave of change, wave of something weird,
right.
And so we, and I thought, well, who enjoys that? Like, who's good at that? Well, surfers are, and they think it's fun to fall off. They think it's hilarious to get booted off and go, head over heels in the water and get smashed. And they think, wahoo, that's great. And I thought, I need a little more enjoyment of riding these waves. And so I'm like, okay, horse whisperer, surfer. And then I thought the other energy that we really need is something like a detective, because we've got to be able to observe our situation and pick up the clues. Well, we've all watched detective shows forever. Right. Like we know how to assess a scene practically. I mean, we don't know all the technical names, but we know the feeling of pausing, yes, looking around and taking it in.
What
and
to
that's
look
really
for. Yeah.
Right. And we do that, except it ends up, it becomes this internalizing where we end up going, why did this happen? I didn't do anything wrong. Oh, it's awful. But if we could drop into the professionalism of a detective, the joy of, let me see this and scope this out. And instead of trying to channel, other stuff, we just wanted to channel some of these professionals who love what they do, love it. And then be able to go, okay, I'm going to download my detective. I'm going to access my inner surfer. I'm going to access my inner comedian, yes. And so I ended up with about 12 different what I call skill at will archetypes. I love that moment where, Neo says, I know Kung Fu, and he downloaded it,
right,
and I thought,
right. He downloaded it right then and there.
Right. And I'm like, well, why can't we? Well, let's do that. We've been so many other people in other lives, we've got that. And I thought, let's just rock this because we've seen it all our lives. And so I invited a group of people to play with that concept. I said, now when you build your I am statements, if there's somebody you need, I am tapping into the knowing of a surfer. I am flowing with the waves and catching the curves. And I am in that flow state. And when I fall down, I effortlessly get back up again, just like a surfer. And when we modified their I am statements, lo and behold, they started coming back going, wow, I rocked it. Like that felt good. Wow, I was smoother. Wow, that worked. And then they got excited. And as soon as people feel like something's working, then they want to do it more. So I just built out the different archetypes and I was like, what do you need? Who do you need? Who do you need to be for this? Because right. I say a prayer often, whenever I open a session, I'll always create, even a set sacred space. So I'll say, help us to see what we need to see. Help us to, hear what we need to hear and know what we need to know and be who we need to be to do whatever we need to do that's ideal in this now moment. Right. And so if we leave ourselves open to that, then we can magnetize and attract that knowing that would let us go, all right, got this. I can do this.
Yes, that's specialized skill set for this particular situation.
Right.
Yes,
and then
I get
you can slice and dice and martial art your way through it, but you're doing
right.
an emotional martial art, you're really just handling yourself. Right. This is the dojo, is your space. And then when you go to nature, and nature is the grounding force that replenishes and pulls energy and gives energy, now you're really doing that dance between heaven and earth.
Wow.
Right.
Amazing how you just orchestrated all that, but this is what you do. And yep. Amazing. And like I said, this segment, I had some questions I was going to ask you, but I didn't want to interrupt your flow and everything. And then as I was listening to you, I said, okay, that question was answered right there. She just did it already. So That's why I said, nope, I'm not going to say anything other than, nodding my head yes and agree, which wasn't any frivolous false agreement. I resonated with everything that you said. I mean, you explained it in a way that, wow, I never thought of it that way.
I get so excited when people go, get to have a tool and then they can go and play with it. And I really encourage the idea of play, like to play with it and say, did this work? Did it not work? In the same way that if I handed you an instrument, you'd be like, and you'd feel it, is this work? Yeah. And where you sing and you make music, right? Like, you try different mixes out and go, oh, I like that one. I'm going to adjust it a little bit. And really we can do the same thing with our presence and with how we set our intention to know if it's going to scratch that itch or attract. But we know that we can get filled up with stuff we didn't think got to us, in the same way that if you eat a lot and go, oh, I'm really full. Like, oh, I didn't expect to eat so much. But we can actually eat a lot with our eyes and with our ears, depending on what we choose to watch for TV. It is really a form of nutrition. Right. And in the same way that you get food that actually gives you gas and makes you feel gross, and you thought it was good at first, but then you're like, ooh, that wasn't a good choice. We really do have to pay attention to what we're taking in, because it can be
like you said, everything. Right. The mental diet, what we're feeding this, what we're feeding in here, everything. Yeah, you're right.
Exactly. I have a mom who, she and her daughter were navigating, the teen years of the daughter wanting to watch some intense, videos that are very adult content. And she's like, well, I'm watch it with you. And she's like, I don't know what to say to her because this is not going to work, but I don't want her to feel deprived. And I'm like, well, she understands nutrition. She's like, yeah. And I'm like, well, tell her that this is the kind of nutrition that can have her not feel so great, or create another side effect she doesn't really want. And as soon as that perspective was put in, the daughter went, nope, I don't want it. I don't want something that would create, she's like, I need space in my brain for retaining my homework and doing stuff I have to learn. And so that's where we want to be able to put it in that language that people can go, oh, I get it. Yeah, that makes sense. Let's go with that.
Yeah. Oftentimes it's not what you say, but how you say it that determines whether someone is able to receive it or not.
Mm-hmm. And then the sneaky part is that even for ourselves, sometimes when we're really sad or afraid, we have a cover emotion over that. So, we can be angry when actually we're really sad, or sad when we're actually really angry. It varies, which is why it's good to kind of drop in and feel it. So what I did was I knew that I had clients on the other side of the world. Not everybody can reach me when I'm available. And I wanted to make sure that when people needed to vent or they needed to, bless you.
Excuse me. Woo.
Bless you.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
Worries. I knew that when people might need me, I wanted to create a space where they could still start a process or feel like they were getting heard. And so I built on my website a space where you can just rant. And there's questions if you want to answer questions that you can engage with, because sometimes by answering questions, you're engaging with that thing that's bugging you. And so I made it so there's a bunch of different questions. And I also got playful. And I was kind of like, if you could carry out your desire to vent your anger any way you wanted to, tell me how you do it. If you want to be the Hulk, do you want to smash? Do you want to throw, a computer off a cliff? Tell me that story. If you could have the ultimate perfect, any way you want it to be, get this anger out situation. I provided a space where I can't read what you put there, but you can mail it to yourself so you can be present for it yourself.
And this is on your site?
It's on twininferno.org. And what I discovered was that originally I called it the Rage Room, but nobody wanted to admit they were ragey.
Right.
So I added humor to it because we know what humor does. So I called it the litter box.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, the litter box.
Hey. And so then I realized that I wanted to create a place for the sadness, because sometimes after you move the angry, you realize you're sad. So I also created a space where you can ask questions about how you would most want to be when you're sad, and I asked, what would be if you could be anywhere, do you want a lake house cabin? Do you want to be driving a convertible toward the sunset? Do you want to be in a penthouse suite with room service? Like, how do you want to be taken care of when you're sad? And just in the process of answering the questions, you start to feel held, you start to feel heard, and at least the process can begin. It's not a live person, but there's, some voice bites, so you can hear a voice that's loving. And I'm going to add some more of those with the skill archetypes, but the resource is there. It's free. It doesn't cost a dime. All you have to do is type it in, and you can also do it with somebody. So let's say you're with your partner and they're having a hard time putting it into words, and it's tough. You can say, hey, well, let me ask you some questions. Does your anger feel more like a forest fire or more like a volcano? Does it feel more like a tidal wave, or does it feel more like a loose wire that's going to zap somebody? And just in trying to dial it in and associate it with nature, it ends up being immediately you're already digesting it, because half the time that we don't digest emotions is our resistance to having them. I don't want to feel this. I don't want that in my way. Make this go away. I'm going to go do something else so I don't have to remember I'm feeling this. I'm going to numb it. And so when you have a way to actually show up and make it cool, make it fun, make it something that you're like, yeah, that feels true. It sets you free. And that's really, I would love that everybody could feel free to then do something more with their energy, like pray for the world or show up for their family or be available for their beloved. And so this is why the more we can learn about participating in our emotional digestion, which I think is our birth. I think we're meant to do it. I think my dream would be that in not so far from now, everybody's so used to it in the same way that we went from not knowing about nutrition to knowing about paleo or keto or these options or intermittent fasting. We hadn't, perceived that, but now it's no big deal. And I would love if it's no big deal. Yeah, I got some emotional alchemy done. I'll be right back. I'm going to go sit with a tree and meditate and go, put my feet in the dirt and like land and breathe. I'll be right back with you. Imagine if that was normal.
It should be.
We're getting there.
Wow. Like I told you, amazing. And thank you. We're going to save the rest for part 2, because I already know that you can continue flowing with your amazing insight and knowledge and wisdom and healing. Just amazing. And again, this website, of course, I'm going to put the link in the description of the video, but can you say it while you're here again?
Sure. twininferno.org. And that's for connecting your presence with choice. And when you're lined up with your core and you're really in your authenticity, it creates an inferno. It creates a potency. And this is where it's you with you at another level.
And are there any other links or sites that people can find you?
I curate a group on Facebook called the Alchemy Lounge, the Taoist Alchemy Lounge.
The Taoist,
Taoism.
Yeah.
TOISM, Taoism Alchemy Lounge. Yes. And that's because there is an essence of sort of very, of a very presence-based and just that nature-based simplicity. And then of course my partner teaches a lot about, from a deprogramming of, different assumptions and things. So there's lots to learn, but I don't do a lot of like advertising. I do mostly putting really, really interesting stuff that's just in the world that just is a delight and that's just fun. So it's just playfulness. But if you want to find me, that's a good way. And then Twin Inferno has a spot on Facebook as well.
Wow. Amazing. Thank you, Katherine, again.
You're welcome.
For being here today and for talking to us all. And I enjoyed having you here today and enjoyed listening to you. Just amazing. I could listen to you for a couple of more hours. Just, yes. Wow. Yeah. I never knew that. And I love having conversations like that where it's just opens where I'm learning new things and learning what I already know in a different way. Like I never looked at it that way. Wow. And I love those kinds of conversations and listening to people such as yourself enlighten me and give me different views on ways to enhance my life.
This is going to be exciting because you're going to look at the Golden Buzzer. I'll send you a link to one of the ones that's that's just the compilation. Right. And what you may want to look at is if you feel your heart open and you feel it burst and you get teary, then when you've risen, you've had this expansion, then pray. then set your intentions. Do it when you've created
when
this
you created
vortex.
that emotion,
Right,
that
exactly.
field. Yes.
Right.
No, I get it.
Create that torrid field and let that be, because your heart has
let that be the opening portal, and then
yes, exactly.
Put your intention in there. Put your
right.
prayer in there.
It's like launching an arrow with a really loaded bow, where you're just like, whoa, right now I'm going to do it, because it's more powerful.
Right.
And that's why it can be really exciting when we have really important things to pray for right now.
Right.
We want to boost it, and so raise the heart first, then go for it.
Right. Yes, I resonate with that, and I totally receive that. Again, like I said, I've listened to a person I really I follow and respect, Greg Braden, and he talks about that, the connection with the heart. It's amazing. Yeah. Amazing.
It's just a question of what works, because not everything, we can get distracted when we're thinking about a story from ourselves sometimes,
right?
Because we're constantly it's hard not to want to perfect. And so even when we think of a happy moment, we can end up going, oh, but it was missing this. Whereas if you watch something where it's nothing,
and then that arrow that you shoot just goes,
yeah, right. or maybe it's just wobbly, but when you watch something that has nothing to do with you, it's not you. You're actually kind of freed of your own ego a little bit, because you see them. You don't know their story, but you know this. You can meet in the space of the gift, of the genius of their gift. Yes. And as you meet and converge with it and it works with you, you aren't mired by what you do or don't know. You just feel it, and then you go, oh, and you just float.
It's time for you to, for you to use that. Oh, wow. Amazing.
I would be stoked to hear you're going to send me a message, go, check it out. I did this. I'm like, yeah.
Yes, I'm going to. Of course, I am. I don't take anything, especially in regards to something like this, and helping me become more empowered, and my prayers and affirmations to be more powerful and more magnetic, anything to do with that. Yes, of course. I'm definitely going to do that. So yes, send me that link.
I will. And you can have fun with it. And for everybody else, and really, I do hope that everyone has a chance to play with the Harry Potter moments and know that they can create their own, way to repel what's trying to make them unhappy, and a way to make things funny when they're scared.
Absolutely. Wow. Thank you again. And thank you everyone for watching. And I know you enjoyed this as much as I did. Thank you very much. Sending you love, peace, and happiness, and prosperity, and everything good. May it continuously circulate in all areas of your life. And I'll see you soon. Enlightened, empowered, evolved. Thank you.